Yo, what's up guys, welcome back to another video. This is a reaction to the nicest small towns in the US part 1. I have a feeling this is going to be a bit of me. I do find these videos quite cool. And when it comes to small towns in the US, there's so many niche places, like, because it's such a big country and there's so much land and so many people that live there. You just find these really unique places that people live, whether they're towns. I wouldn't say cities because cities are quite big, but you probably do get really interesting, or just, oh no, this is nice, this isn't interesting actually, so this is just more focused on towns that just look beautiful. Maybe they're in a nice region in the mountains, or it just looks beautiful, etc. I was sort of thinking this was going to go into like interesting towns, but I take that back. But yeah, we're going to check this out and see what these towns look like, where they're located. Is there a common theme of like where they are? I'm going to assume a lot are maybe like in the woods or like in the mountains, or sort of have a mountain range around them. So yeah, we're going to see where and what these places look like, and that's pretty much it. Hopefully you're going to enjoy, and let's jump into this reaction.
Howdy, it's Kyle going
Good
over
old
some
Kyle.
cute small towns in the U.S. Most people live in cities or suburbs, and that's where we focus most of our attention, or we talk about getting away to national parks or state parks or other wilderness areas, but we often don't talk about some of the small towns. There are a lot of really nice small towns in the country, so this isn't going to be a countdown, the top 10 or top 25 small towns in the U.S., just kind of a survey of a handful of really cute small towns. And there's certainly more that I can cover in this video. I'll come back to this topic many times, but yeah, this is the first installment of cute small towns in the U.S. I think New England is the part of the country that has the tightest cluster of cute small towns, so I'm going to start there, and Stockbridge, Massachusetts. It's located in the Berkshires, which is part of the Appalachian Mountain System in the far west end of the state.
In Massachusetts, I've probably seen that fact before. That it's like that blows my mind that the Appalachian Mountains begin, or not begin, but are also in Massachusetts. That's mad.
Not too far from the New York state line. The population is about 2,000, and like many small towns in New England, it's pretty old. It was established in the 1730s. In terms of visiting, it's a pretty popular day and weekend getaway for city folks from Boston or just other folks in New England. There are many art galleries located in the town, as well as the Norman Rockwell Museum. Many of his paintings were focused on the Stockbridge area. With it being an old town, there are quite a few historic inns and bed and breakfasts, pretty cool spots to stay.
Yeah,
from an outdoor standpoint, the Appalachian Trail runs just east and south of here. Beartown State Forest is right outside of the town. So a really nice town.
This just looks like how it would have been like 100, 200 years ago. Obviously, maybe just maintained well, but this, I feel like this area would have looked exactly the same in like 1850 or something like that.
In a beautiful setting, but just know that sometimes the turnpike I-90 there is closed from Stockbridge to Boston, but when it is, the Berkshires really seem dreamlike on account of that frosting. But yeah, Stockbridge, one of maybe 500 nice small towns in Massachusetts. Next, I'm going to the Midwest and Guttenberg, Iowa. This is in the northeastern corner of the state, right along the Mississippi River, in a part of the country I've discussed a lot called the Driftless area. So this includes portions of northeastern Iowa, northwestern Illinois, southwestern Wisconsin, and southeastern Minnesota. And this is a very pretty and scenic area right along the Mississippi River bluffs, and the town of Guttenberg is a really nice, cute, small town. There are about 1,800 people that live there, and it was largely built up in the 1830s by German immigrants. So there are many signs of German heritage through the years and multiple festivals that celebrate German heritage. Okay. You'll see some really nice architecture in here made out of limestone. So you have a lot of Mississippi River Bluff limestone right there that's used to make some of these old homes. Like all of the towns I'm going to mention in this, there's a really cute main street right downtown that has a lot of locally owned shops. And I think that's a big part of what makes a small town cute, when it's just
Is that, what the hell is it called? A vending machine in the entrance of a door? Why is this vending machine blocking the doorway?
You'll see locally owned stuff without big chains.
For this shop.
So I think Guttenberg is one of just many small towns in this driftless area that are worth a visit, and makes for a nice road trip around this region for maybe a weekend.
Foresty area or woodland.
For this next one, I'm going to a twin town situation, Thomas and Davis, West Virginia. These towns are only a couple of miles apart, and that's why I'm including them together in this one, but they're both located in the far western end of the eastern panhandle of the state, just south of the southwestern end of the Maryland panhandle. So all that to say, it's a very pretty scenic area in the Appalachians. Each one of these towns has a population of about 600 people, and they're both located in Tucker County, which has about 6,600 people with a population decline. Each of these towns
I find US towns so interesting because I feel like in like a UK town that had 600 people, you wouldn't have like built up streets like this. It just wouldn't be the case at all. But maybe this is down to like, for example, this town may be a lot of like sort of a lot more secluded than a lot of towns in the UK will be. So then in that case, this may be where other people who live around this area come to. But yeah, in UK towns this size, you wouldn't get like this sort of street. This sort of seems like a street that you could find in like not like a major city, but like a more built up area. And yeah, the I don't know, the buildings just look really nice as well. Look, again, I used this word before, but quite classy, quite old school.
has a nice main street downtown. I think the one
It reminds me of like Manchester a little bit.
in Thomas is a little more
The red
interesting.
brick.
It's a little more historic. Both of these towns have some nice locally owned shops and restaurants. There are
Oh,
some
wow.
more outdoors oriented type shops and outfitters in Davis, and some more art gallery type things in Thomas. And dare I say, there's even kind of a mini hippie and hipster scene in these towns. There are some art galleries, plenty of coffee shops and bakeries. And because the area
Damn.
is so popular for outdoors enthusiasts, there are some hangouts for people who are mountain bikers.
Okay, so people will come through this town then.
There's rock climbers and cavers. There's a ski resort nearby, and overall, I would say that these are two of the nicest towns in West Virginia. These are not super well-known towns. They're not located along the main route you would use to get from the main points A to main points B. But if you do live in the DC, Baltimore area, or just in this general region, do consider a day trip to Davis and Thomas, West Virginia. They're both really cool towns. Now I'm headed to the southwest and Springdale, Utah. This is located in the southwestern portion of the state. It's the gateway town to Zion National Park, and the edge of the town is the national park entrance.
Oh,
In
wow.
fact, the town itself is located in Zion Canyon, so the whole
Bro, look at this scenery for a town. Bloody hell. This is such an interesting looking place. How many people live here? It looks like there's probably like, what, no more than 100 people? Although maybe this is like a resort. I don't know, not a resort, but like these just seem like, this looks like it would be like a hotel or something. There's a home here. There's a few homes dotted around. This is a very interesting looking one, but the scenery is mad.
Canyon isn't inside the national park. The elevation of the town is 3,800 feet, and there are about 650 people that live there.
Oh,
Before
quite a
the
lot.
national park, it was just a small Mormon farming town, but after it became
That
a
is
national
beautiful.
park, it became more tourist oriented. There are some shops and art galleries, restaurants, and other services for national park visitors.
Imagine living somewhere and this is your view every day. That is so mad.
Services for national park visitors, and there are plenty of hotels there as well if you don't want to camp. And you could even say it's a little bougie in Springdale.
Bougie.
If you're going to be
Ooh.
doing the Grand Circle tour of the national parks of the Southwest, you're probably going to be going to Zion, and you're probably going to be driving right through Springdale. There's been a ton of population growth in southwestern Utah, but Springdale does remain a small
Look at
town
that,
right there at
bro.
the entrance of Zion National Park, and a really cool small town. Heading back to the
That's
northeast,
such a
I'm
crazy
going to
view.
Geneva, New York. It's located at the
Geneva in New York. Damn, I didn't know there's Geneva in the US at all.
northern end of Seneca Lake, which is one of the lakes in the Finger Lakes region. And you can
Finger
see why
Lakes.
they're called the Finger Lakes. They're relatively long but narrow. Seneca Lake
Should be
is a
called the
little
Scrape Lakes. You scraped it with your fingers. There you go. I don't know.
more than 2
Oh, shut
miles
up.
wide. It was founded in the early 1800s, and because it's located right there on a lake with some beautiful scenery around, it was named after Geneva, Switzerland.
Oh, there you
Like
go.
pretty much all of the towns I'll mention in this video,
Bloody
it's a
hell.
popular weekend getaway, this time for people from New York City or other areas in the Northeast. It's not just Seneca Lake, many of the other lakes in the region.
Bro, this literally looks like... Oh, okay, this is a really nice place. There's a church just here as well. Oh, this is a beautiful street.
But there is a
Bloody
Seneca
hell.
Lake wine trail. This part of the state is where you have a lot of agritourism, a lot of vineyards and apple growing. And Geneva refers to itself as a lake trout capital of the world. So another nice small town, nice main street, some locally owned shops and restaurants. And that's again kind of the running theme here. Nice little small town with beautiful scenery around it. That's Geneva, New York as well. Heading over to the
Oh,
west
I want to
coast,
see more
I'm
of this place. That place, I really like the look of that place.
going to Florence, Oregon. Even though it's referred to
Florence.
as a coastal town, it isn't really right on the coast. The water
So Florence, is that... I don't know. I think that's Italy. Florence is a place in Italy, isn't it?
going through there is the Siuslaw River, but it's only a mile or so from the beach, so it's certainly still considered coastal. And Florence is just one of a handful of small towns along the Oregon coast. There's no big development allowed right there along the coast. All the beaches are state parks. And Florence being one of those small
The
towns.
beaches are state parks. Is that just a way to sort of preserve them then?
Has, again, a nice downtown right along the waterfront, some really cool restaurants and shops. There was an ice cream shop there that we went to probably every day, the 5 days that we were there. And even though it's pretty touristy, we were there in August in the middle of the high season, and it wasn't that crowded. There were certainly folks there, but it wasn't overrun with tourists. Most of the beach area outside of Florence are large sand dunes. And the beach town right next to Florence is called Heceta Beach. This is right there basically in the dunes. And just like anywhere along the Pacific coast in the summer, it's going to be a really nice escape from the heat in the interior valleys. So plenty of nice small towns along the Oregon coast, but perhaps our favorite is Florence. Now heading this an hour southeast of where I live, I'm going to L.A., Georgia. This is in the far north of the state, again about an hour southeast of Chattanooga, Tennessee, and a little over an hour north of Atlanta. And this is located in the southern end of the Appalachians in the Blue Ridge area, not too far from Great Smoky Mountains National Park and that type of scenery. The town itself has about 2,000 people living there. It's located in Gilmer County, which has about 32,000, and the town is located at 1,280 feet elevation. Another nice downtown with a circle there, some cool shops and restaurants. But probably the claim to fame for L.A. is the apple growing capital of Georgia. From August through November, there's a lot of apple harvesting going on. There's a big apple festival in October. And we usually go down to L.A. twice each year, once in August to get some of the early season apples and then once in November to get some of the late season apples. There's another town in North Georgia called Helen. That's much more popular as a tourist destination. Pretty cool downtown there as well. But L.A. is a little more laid back, a little less known, and even if you aren't into the whole apple scene, there is a pretty cool town right there. Now I'm headed back to the Midwest and Grand Marais, Minnesota. This is on the north shore of Lake Superior in the Northwoods type area. Just outside of it is the Boundary Waters Canoe Area and Superior National Forest. And like many of these towns, it's another popular spot for artists. Located there is the Grand Marais Art Colony. There's an annual art festival there, and there's a peninsula that juts out into the water called Artist Point. It's also home to the North House Folk School, where you can learn some old-timey trades. And the town is also known for having both a summer...
That's a pretty cool statue. I like that a lot.
...and winter solstice festival each year. And with Grand Marais being located right there in the heart of canoe country, there are many businesses there that specialize in canoe and kayak rentals and equipment. And to go along with the art festival and solstice festivals is also a wooden boat festival. And right downtown, there's one of those old-timey five and dime type stores that predated Walmart called the Ben Franklin. And look what I found along the wall at the Grand Marais Ben Franklin.
This just seems like a classic sort of place you'd want to go to. Just like old school, etc., all that sort of stuff.
The most Minnesota thing you'll ever see. And if you've ever wondered where Anthony Fantano shops, well, it's the Ben Franklin in Grand Marais, Minnesota.
Fair.
I'm going to head back to New England for this next one, and Exeter, New Hampshire. This is located in the southeastern portion of the state along the Exeter River, upstream of the town of Exeter.
Bro, this is a lovely looking like view from the waterway. I mean, comparing this to Exeter in the UK, I don't actually know what Exeter in the UK looks like. I just know it's out in the middle of nowhere, near like Cornwall, I think. But this is cool. This does not look like a town from this view here. This looks like it looks like a city, to be honest.
Freshwater river, but downstream it's more brackish. It was founded in 1638, and there's a population of about 16,000 people there now. With it being such an old town, the riverfront is the main historic area. There are many old mills there. Like many other towns in this video, there are many art galleries there, but there's also the American Indian Museum. And Exeter is also kind of like the Roswell of the Northeast. In 1965, there was some type of UFO sighting, some kind of weird things going on. I don't know, but they do have a UFO festival to celebrate it. So think about the historic colonists showing up there on their beaten up wooden boats 400 years ago, and then a bunch of alien invaders coming 50 years ago. But yeah, that's Exeter, New Hampshire, another really cute small town in New England. Next, I'm going to what is probably the most off the beaten path place I'll mention in the video, and that's Chadron, Nebraska.
Chadron.
This is located in the extreme northwest corner of Nebraska, which is a pretty big state. There are about 5,200 people that live there. It's located in Dawes County, which has about 8,200 people. And this is just south of the South Dakota state line. So southwestern South Dakota is where you have the Black Hills and Mount Rushmore and the caves. So when most folks think of Nebraska, they're probably not thinking about that type of badland scenery, but you do get plenty of it in the northwest corner of Nebraska. And you think about how huge Nebraska is, under 2 million people, but about 1.5 million live in the southeastern corner of the state. That's where Omaha and Lincoln are, but again, Shadron is the far northwestern
I didn't realize 2 million people lived in Nebraska. I thought it was a lot less than that.
corner. So this is about as far as you can get from the main population centers in the state. But it isn't just the pretty scenery. I do think the town of Shadron itself is a pretty nice small town. There is a college.
This is an old picture, right? This looks like it's from like the 70s or something. And like, I don't mean that in a bad way, but I mean the cars maybe not. I mean, yeah, the cars show that it's not, but the buildings seem like it's from like maybe not the 70s, like Back to the Future sort of style. I don't know, or like I don't actually know what I'm saying, but it just this picture looks old and new at the same time. I'm just getting that sort of sense that this seems old, but it's not because the cars are making me think. Because obviously it's not. And even like this, it just looks very old school.
There's Shadron State College, but I certainly wouldn't call this a college town. But it does have a nice, cute Main Street downtown, a good barbecue joint. And you gotta love a town that chose this image to be the one you see when you go to the city webpage. So if you're visiting the Black Hills, Mount Rushmore area in South Dakota, do consider a trip down across the Nebraska state line down to Shadron. I'm heading back to the Appalachian region for this one and Abingdon, Virginia. This is in the far southwestern corner of the state, not too far from Bristol, which is right on the state line with Tennessee. This is another old historic town. It was incorporated in 1778, and today there's a population of 8,400. And just like all the other places in the video, it's a pretty popular day and weekend trip spot, and that's why we went there. We went there for a weekend a couple years ago. There's an old hotel there called the Martha Washington Inn that was originally a women's college built in 1832. And along the main historic street are some nice locally owned shops and restaurants, cafes, and art galleries. Also located downtown is the historic Barter Theater, which is the official state theater of Virginia. And when we were there a couple of years ago, we saw Murder on the Orient Express live right there. Southwest Virginia is the poorest part of the state and one of the poorest parts of the country, but Abingdon is relatively wealthy compared to the surrounding area. And you can even find a little bit of bouginess in Abingdon. It's also a spot I would recommend if you're interested in seeing some Appalachian fall foliage. It's located halfway-ish between Shenandoah National Park in Virginia and Great Smoky Mountains National Park in Tennessee and North Carolina. Similar beautiful scenery, the trees turn the same colors but significantly fewer crowds. Going back to the west coast, my personal favorite small town, that's Morro Bay, California. It's located on the central coast, not in one of the large metro areas. And because of that, it's not overrun with tourists. It's pretty...
What a mad looking coastline. What's this? Is this for like factories and stuff? It's a pretty interesting view from here. It looks very, from so far from what I'm saying, it looks very plain. I don't know what to sort of think about this place at the moment.
Pretty far south of San Francisco Bay area, so folks from there don't go there. It's pretty far north of the LA area. People from there don't go there. And you can go even in the middle of the high season and it isn't really crowded. It's mostly people from other parts of Central California that go there. And like other West Coast towns, it's pretty chilly even in the summer. It's not a
That's a cool view. I mean, that in your background when you're going to the beach is pretty insane.
Beach escape. But it is a great town to walk around right there along the Embarcadero. Some good seafood restaurants, some interesting shops. You have many sport fishing trips take off from there. You can see many sea otters and other mammals in the water right there. And the big rock out there is called Morro Rock. It's a volcanic neck, which is an erosionary remnant of a volcano.
Bloody
the waterfront there is really nice. The main street a few blocks inland is also really nice. And the town is actually kind of a middle-class town, so regular folks in regular type homes can live there. But they're really, really expensive houses now. A lot of the folks that live there bought their home 15, 20, or many more years ago than that when it was cheap. But now they're kind of NIMBY-ish, not much growth there. The population is 10,000 now. It's been the same population since 1980. But nonetheless, it's a really nice town, so I can imagine if you live there why you might be NIMBY. Morro Bay, California, my personal favorite small town in the country. Heading back to the East Coast, I'm now going to Cape May, New Jersey. Of all the ones I'll mention, this is the one that might become the most overrun with tourists in the high season. It's a pretty popular day and weekend spot for folks in New Jersey and the New York area. The population of the town of Cape May is 2,700, but just inland from that is the town of Cape May Courthouse with 5,500. The town was founded in 1690, and it's actually the oldest tourist resort town in the U.S. Sometime in the early 1800s, it became a pretty popular beach destination for people from...
This is a pretty cool street of homes. All different styles, sort of similar styles, but different colours and designs.
New Jersey and New York, and there's been a tourist economy there for over 200 years. But even though there is a nice beach there on Cape May, most of the other spots around there are kind of swampy. But again, broken record here. It's a nice small town with a nice downtown, some nice art and music scenes. There's a big jazz festival there. And like just about everywhere else in the Northeast, there's a bunch of ice cream shops there, and they're all crowded. The focal point of downtown is the Washington Street pedestrian mall, no vehicles allowed on it. And there are many beautiful historic inns and bed and breakfasts to stay in. So when most folks think of New Jersey, they think of the big cities and suburbs, but at the far south end of the state is a nice small town, Cape May. And the last one that I'm going to mention is quite a bit different from the other ones. I'm going over to Germany for this one, and the small town of...
He's gone to Germany? I was not expecting that.
Bad Tolz. This is located in Bavaria in the far south end of Germany, not too far from the Austria border. And there are about 19,000 people that live in this town. And I wanted to mention this one for more personal reasons. My wife and I got a chance to visit here in summer 2024. This is the town that her father spent his formative years in. He was born around this town, and this was basically his home village.
It's a pretty beautiful town.
We're starting to get up into the mountains here. The elevation is 2,160 feet. And this is a very old town. It was founded in 1331.
Damn.
And the main street right downtown is a medieval pedestrian.
Okay, yeah, this place is beautiful. Jesus. This is an unreal place.
Street. And just like the small towns in the U.S., it has some really cool locally owned shops, restaurants, cafes. And it's a very popular spot for many tourists from other parts of Germany. The original name of the town was simply Tolz, but they added Bad to it in 1899. Bad is the German word for spa, and there are many iodine-rich hot springs in the area. And as a result, it became a bit of a resort town, many folks going to sit in the hot springs at spas. So it was really cool for me to see a small German town and compared to some of the small towns in the U.S. or other places I've been. Really nice town. If you happen to be in Munich, do take the short train ride down to Bad Tolz. Really cool small town.
Yeah, that place looks beautiful. That German village looks unreal. But there we go. My man gonna get put in a hit list for exposing all these small towns. Fair. Not sure how many Fantano Geography King crossover exists. But here I am. Yeah, is that him? No, it's not. Never expected. Oh, that was another one. So glad this subject will be a multi-part series. Hooray for part 1. Yeah, damn straight, man. I do find this stuff pretty cool to see. And it's always nice to just find new places out within the US as well. Because when it comes to like small cities or small towns, that's not really something that I've seen a lot of. I've definitely done videos on this before, but not really looked into it. So, yeah, man, I'm excited to see more. Hopefully going to enjoy. And if you've been to these places or you're from these places, let me know if you agree or disagree. And are you fuming that he's now putting a spotlight on your places that you go to? Maybe they're like your spots that you go to that you don't tell anyone, like they're your low-key place that you go to now. He's doing a video on them, but nah, let me know your thoughts on that. And yeah, until next time, like, subscribe.